1, 2.
Oh. Okay. Testing.
Great. I think we're, Senators, could you just test all your mics to make sure they're working?
Testing.
Excellent.
Testing.
Hello.
Great. Okay. Okay, we're going to start over. Now that we have our mics going. This is the Senate Education, and we are hearing House bills today. Welcome to every one of you who is in the audience. We will start with House Bill 1624, and the prime sponsor is Timothy Lang, Representative Lang. Welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, committee members, for having me here. I'm Representative Tim Lang. I am a three-term state representative, currently the chair of the House Fish and Game Committee, as well as I serve on the Ways and Means Committee. You have before you House Bill 1624, which has had a 5-year path to get in front of you. This bill was introduced originally in my first term by Representative Michael Moffitt. It made it through the Finance Committee and died over in the Education, made it through the Education Committee and died over in the Finance Committee in the House. The next year we turned it into a study commission, which I sponsored that bill. And I was the chair of that study commission to look at unified sports in our school systems and see what the hindrances were to be able to provide unified programs to our educational systems. The number one thing we learned out of that about availability is in the tightening budgets, the first year costs were problematic to get these programs started. So the most traditional idea when people think about unified activities, they think about sports programs, so unified soccer, unified basketball. What I learned in the commission is we don't have just those kind of programs. Over on the Seacoast, there was a school that put on a unified theater program and did a program where students of special needs as well as neurotypical kids could perform in a program as a special theater arts program. So looking at that, the startup costs were implemented. We put together this grant program. I put the bill in last year, and it made it through unanimously through the Education Committee. And then when it hit the Finance Committee, I hit a wall again, where it was stalled again, and it was because I was missing some language in the bill, which they pointed out, which I've corrected. And in this third iteration of the actual grant program, we've solved the mechanical problems that were defects that were in the bill in finance. It mainly was around rulemaking and understanding exactly what the grant program is. What the grant program is, it's just a 1-year, it's a ongoing expenditure of $50,000 grant program to the Department of Education. It's to take care of the one-time equipment costs for the startup of programs for unified programs, co-curricular programs. So again, when you think about that, because we always usually think in terms of sports, think about unified basketball, unified soccer. It's to allow them to be able to buy the uniforms needed to start up those programs, which are a significant cost. What this doesn't do is create a labor cost or cover labor costs. The idea being that we want the school to have a little bit invested in this as well. And on top of that, I didn't want to create a bait and switch that we always hear complain about is where the federal government or the state creates a grant program for the first year, then takes the money away, and the school's stuck with the ongoing costs. And so the school's got to buy into the idea. They got to pay the stipend for the teacher, but the equipment costs we could come out of this grant program. The grant program's two-tiered. The first tier is, again, for startup programs. It allows for any school that doesn't have a program, wants to start up a program, to be able to apply up to $4,000 for a grant from the state to be able to buy the initial startup equipment costs. In the second year of that money, if not all of the money is taken, then we allow for existing programs to apply for a grant to replace existing equipment. So if they've already had a co-curricular program for a number of years and uniforms are worn out, the equipment's worn out, they can apply in that second year with any leftover money for equipment grants to replace existing equipment. It's a pretty straightforward program. Built into the bill is a 5-year reporting requirement that makes the Department of Education check the efficacy of the program to see if the grants are being used and such, and to make a report to the legislature for any possible future legislation. I'm happy to answer any question. I will say that if there is ever a program in a high school that created great human beings, it's these kind of programs. It teaches our children how to be tolerant, how to work with other people, and that's not like themselves. And if you've ever been to one of these programs at a high school, the amount of energy, for lack of a better phrase, that are put into these programs and in the crowd to support these programs is incredible in the community. I highly ask you to, again, it was unanimous in the Education Committee, it was unanimous in Fish and Game, and I spoke with the Chair of Finance who said she's tucked away money for it. So if you approve it, there's funds available for it. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from committee members? Senator Hennessy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative, for bringing this bill forward. Just a question on the timing of things. The way I read it, it says on line 5, each first year of a biennium. So we've already been through the first year of the biennium, but we're appropriating funds in the second year of the biennium this time, which I see down on line 19. I'm wondering if you would want an effective date for the first section to be in the next biennium, so that on line 9 of the bill, where it says remaining funds shall be distributed in the next year to the school districts with existing, the way I read the first part of the bill is the funds that we appropriate on September 1st of 2022 for the fiscal year 2023 biennium would only go to existing unified co-curricular programs. However, there's kind of some contradictory language in section 2, starting on 19, where it says the sum of $50,000 is appropriated to the Department of Education for distribution to school districts, and that says for the primary purpose of funding the first year of operational expenses. So the way your first part of the bill is written, it wouldn't allow new programs to start up because it's not the first year of the biennium.
I get your question. If that's a mechanical correction you want to make, that's great. I think in the second section when it talks about for the fiscal year ending, the sum of 50 is appropriated. So I think the first year it talks about in section 2, it's really talking about the first year of operation of the programs, not the first year of the biennium. But
Right. The first year of the biennium section is up on section 1.
Correct.
Where it talks about. So if you want to bring us an amendment that would fix that.
Sure, I will take a look at that and I'll present an amendment to the committee.
Any other questions? Senator Khan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and nice to see you, Representative Lang. So two things. I just want to clarify some definitions. And one is, I guess I'm unfamiliar with the term unified.
So that is, if I think we use the RSA in here to define that. It's 21. It's under 21N4. Sorry, back up. Give me 1 second. Do we have the amended version? The one I pulled was the original version. So
Okay, it is 21N4.
So I do know that unified activities are defined by Department of Education because it's part of the special education program, and there is a definition in which I'm sure they can probably talk to. I don't remember if I put the definition in the bill itself for what unified co-curricular activities are.
Can you give me just a short, what do you think it means?
So generally, unified co-curricular activities are cooperative programs between special needs students and neurotypical students. And it's usually advocated between a 50-50 mix in the programs. So 50% of neurotypical kids and 50% of special needs kids. And in every program I've attended across the state, that's been the history.
Thank you. And follow, Madam Chair, the definition on line 5 is in schools, and I heard you say high schools. Is this specific to high schools?
It is not. There are middle school unified programs. I don't think I've seen an elementary school program, but there are middle school and high school programs across the state already.
So if an elementary school, K through 8, wanted to organize a unified co-curricular activity, they would be eligible to apply for funding.
That's correct, sir. There's no limitation on grades here at all.
Okay.
What's that?
And I think so. Oh, I wanted to ask you, so back to this replacement of equipment. It implies that some programs have already been initiated. I was wondering, how were those originally funded?
So thank you. So a lot of the programs, I worked with Mary Connolly from the Special Olympics program, who is deeply involved in helping the schools get some of these programs off the ground, especially as it relates to sports programs. So a lot of them were initial funding right out of, budgeting. Schools prioritized it and said it was an important item. Again, I go back to the commission I chaired in 2018 or 19. I apologize. I don't remember which it was. Actually, it was 19 or 20. And in that commission, we had a broad spectrum of athletic directors, of school members, of Special Olympics, as well as state representatives. And what came out of that in the testimony, we had probably a dozen meetings, was that probably the number one thing for new programs to move forward was the initial funding costs. So we're looking to help spread that, again, for the smaller districts that have issues, to see if there's a way of spreading those out and allow that to happen.
And last question, Madam Chair. Do you envision this to be matching? I mean, with $50,000, these are going to be fairly small grants. And $5,000 could be spent really fast on forming a new unified team.
Well, thank you, Senator, for your question. Again, I do think that there is a certain amount of matching. Like we talked about the fact that this doesn't include the stipend to the teacher that's going to coach the program or act on the program, that would be a cost of the school system to bear if they wanted to implement a new system. We were just trying to take for lack of a better phrase, the spikes out of the budget process, right? So when you initiate these programs. So with $50,000, it's at the maximum capacity, it's 12 and a half grants, for lack of a better phrase, or maximum $4,000 per grant. So it would be 12 and a half grants would be allowed across the state. That does not, I want to be clear on one thing that was brought up, is that it also doesn't mean that if one school decides in 1 year they want to do a soccer program and a basketball program, those are two separate grant activities, and they could apply for 2 grants for those 2 programs if they want to do a multi-year, so it's a full year kind of setup. So it would allow, it's not a per school, it's a per program, grant program.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a quick question for you. You're talking about being able to buy the uniforms. How much is one uniform?
So I was trying to go back to my days on the school board and the school budget committee, and it's about, so around between $4,000 and $5,000. So this grant would deal with a majority of the basic start. If you're talking about basketball, the number's a lot less because you only have 10 kids on a team generally. So it just depends on how big the team is.
Okay, so what I was thinking was one kid, what is the uniform, including shoes and special equipment?
I'm sorry, say that again?
I was looking at the cost of one uniform, plus the shoes, with special shoes, and whatever implement they need to play.
So generally in school, at least the sports programs I participated, both as a coach at the middle school as well as in the high school, shoes wouldn't be included, but we provide the shirt and shorts or shirt and pants, depending on what the activity is, and socks. Our team for around $500.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much.
And Senator Hennessy, I will get you an amendment to deal with that timing issue in the first section versus the last section. Thank you.
I don't have anybody else who wants to speak on this bill, but I have 6 people supporting it. So if I don't see anybody else in the audience who wants to speak on this bill, we close the hearing on House Bill 163024. Okay, we'll move right into House Bill 1671. And the sponsor is Representative Ladd.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Senate Education Committee. For the record, my name is Rick Ladd. I am from Grafton 4, which is Haverhill, and I also chair House Education and the prime sponsor of 1671. 1671 is a result of a bill that was vetoed by the governor last session, HB 242. And it was vetoed for a number of reasons. It needed cleanup in a number of areas, which we've done. And I'd like to walk through the bill a little bit, but first of all, I'd like to read just one section that came out of a court case back in 1993. It's stated, and this is regarding adequacy and the content of adequacy. It states, states' constitutional duty to provide constitutionally adequate education and to guarantee adequate funding extends beyond mere reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also includes broad educational opportunities needed in present society to prepare citizens for their role as participants and as potential competitors in the marketplace of ideas. So back in this year, 1993, there was a report, Claremont versus Governor, that our area of adequate education extends beyond reading, writing, and arithmetic. So now we're looking at 1671, which takes that area of the content of adequate education, which is currently in law, and it goes back and looks over these particular areas that are the content of an adequate education. And we have modified, and this bill came out of the House on the with a unanimous voice vote, and it's supported by numerous groups, including New Hampshire Bankers Association, which they have testimony which they're presenting to you today, which I will address a little later on. I don't think Ryan Hale's going to be here, so I will do it for him. The areas of content of adequate education we looked at in the first part of this bill. English language arts and reading, that remains the same as we've had in the past. Mathematics remains the same. Science does. Social studies, what we've done is we've added, including civics, government, economics, geography, history, and the Holocaust and genocide education. Certainly the latter part there, Holocaust and genocide education, is kind of reflective of what's going on in Ukraine today. And it's important that our students know the history of what we've done in this world, wherever it may be, that, it's not a course we want to travel down again. Under the arts education area, and by the way, within education rules, and if you look at the criteria for an adequate education, which is in section law just prior to this section, looks at the substantive educational content, it talks about the knowledge and skills students need to attain an education and graduate from high school with what we want them to know in terms of knowledge and skills. All those areas that we are including in the area of social studies are inclusive in that first section of law. Underneath the next part, arts education, there is reference to arts education in education rule right now, and it reads, this is education 306.31. That a sequential and comprehensive arts education program be provided for each K through 12 student in music and visual arts, while developing supplemental but not required opportunities in dance, media arts, and theater. We have had with this in our statute, in our rules for a number of years, but there's never been a reflection of that part of rulemaking in statute, where we talk about including the arts area and music that we're talking about here. So we've put that in there as well. Health and wellness education is another area which is similar, where it's been spoken to within education rule for years, wellness. And we've also had a bill come forward which we've addressed it, you've addressed it earlier when we talked about the area studies within law, where we now are including that in the content for an adequate education. Number 9 there on line 18 talks about engineering and technologies. And it's in what we've looked at, we had at one time computers in there. Well, computers are a tool. And so, but what we want done is we want these engineering and technologies applied. And so including technology applications, the use of these throughout your studies and how you apply them. And certainly that you call trying to get some help on working with one of your computers, your iPhone, you're calling somebody and you're getting that help. You don't understand the applications. Kids need this. Lastly, personal finance literacy has been an issue that has come before the House Education year after year after year. And it's also when the governor vetoed 242, it was an emphasis on his part that this is an area that is needed in our schools. And if you look at the report that's coming to you from the New Hampshire Bankers Association, there was a situation where a student that just graduated went forward to a bank with his checkbook and wanted to know why there wasn't money in the check. These things weren't worth anything, or he was just writing checks out, not knowing that he had to put money in the bank in order to cover the cost of the check that he was writing it out for. We need more personal finance literacy amongst all of us. When you graduate from high school, boom, you're out there in the real world dealing with credit cards, debit cards, you're dealing with costs related to your daily life experiences, interest rates, and on it goes, including the IRS. And all very difficult to maneuver through and weave through. So we need to have this in taught. Now, the second part of this bill takes computer use and digital literacy and logic and rhetoric and says these are skills that are needed throughout all the other above. When we're learning how to do mathematics, we need to be thinking, we need to have good rhetoric skills as far as communication and speaking, and we need good thinking and logic skills. And so this is just putting the skills where they belong, they're going to be applied through everything above, in every subject area. I doubt that you could ask me one of these courses and I couldn't tell you how that's incorporating and needing to incorporate logic and speaking and rhetoric and the use of computers. The second part on the latter part of this, it's just looking at the accountability for an opportunity for an adequate education, and it's just including those areas which are now reflective in the content on the front side. And under personal finance literacy, it's important to note that this does not go in effect until, and it dittos what we did under studies until the FY25 school year. Although right now, if you were looking at your education rules and your competencies for what you have to have in order to graduate and the credits that you need to have in your file when you graduate, economics is one of those courses. But if you look in education rule, it says including personal finance literacy, and that's a half credit. That's required right now. So this is why we're looking at, there's a number of ways of teaching personal finance literacy. You can embed it in a course. You can teach it as a separate course. It can be taught as part of economics. That's a local decision, and when they develop their curriculum, their scope and sequence of courses that they are doing. So in a nutshell, this is what we've done with this. There's no drastic changes. In fact, the design of the adequate education remains the same, but we're incorporating in these content areas which we think are crucial and important that every student be exposed to and develop those knowledge and skills associated with those subject areas prior to graduation. So I'd be glad to take any questions on this. I will offer you, this is a sheet which I prepared for you, which explains a little bit of the course about this as well. It's basically the committee report that was in the calendar when we voted it on the House floor.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee members? Senator Hennessy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. Could you go a little bit more into detail about how what we're requiring of our schools to do for personal financial literacy right now is different than what you would expect them to do with this bill?
There's a number of ways it's being taught and what we're requiring students to know. Right now, the course itself, the syllabus is designed by the local school boards, but I know there's a number, for example, even up your way, when you have Passumpsic Bank, which is in agreement with, or has set up a program for the schools where they contribute X number of dollars into their savings account. The kid puts in so much, the family does. And there's also educational materials provided by Passumpsic Bank to the schools to help go down the route of personal finance literacy. That is also occurring in places here in Concord as well. I don't know if all the banks are doing it. I do know that the Bankers Association is prepared to provide assistance to schools in what are the components and what are the objectives when you take this course, what you should come out knowing. This is why FY24 is the year in which we want to have this ready to go.
Follow up. So for those small school districts where students have to plan out their schedules several years in advance, let's just take, say, a Hennessy child who shall be graduating in 2024, and she's working really hard to make sure she gets all the requirements done. Come see her senior year, because I know I'm going to hear about this when I go home, I'm now going to require her to take a specific course in personal financial literacy, and as opposed to perhaps the one she may have already taken with the
No,
credits
you don't.
embedded?
She doesn't have to take the specific course in this.
Okay.
It's as we did with the bill that came forward the other day, where it talks about studies and incorporates how this is done. It's under the studies component. It says you may embed this. Now, that would mean it would be done exactly how we have in statute right now, within the economics course, that 1/2 credit that they need to learn or have. That's in 189:10 right now, or it would be through the other bill. So we recognize that we're not trying to hold your daughter. And I know, being a corporate member, board member of Woodsville Guarantee, you wouldn't let that happen anyways. But we want to ensure, though, that we're having students coming out and not having to deal with the situation we saw in this right here.
Yes, sorry, follow up again. Follow up. And I definitely agree with you. I hear from industry folks and even constituents who they say, I wish that I had known when I graduated. I heard all the horror stories about credit cards and why you shouldn't use them, but he actually wished he had known he should use them so he could develop credit. So when he went to go for a loan for his small business he created, he could actually get a loan. So thank you for bringing this forward.
It's a complicated issue, and it needs to be taught.
Senator Shardy.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative. Just wanted some clarification. The amendment changed computer science to computer use, which is vastly different. And I believe in 2018, that's when computer science was added with unanimous support. Can you clarify this change?
When that was done, yes, Senator, when that was done, we were looking at, for the first time, the computer science or the use of computers in our schools. And many of us on the Education Committee at that time related computers as to what we taught years ago with the pencil. It was a way of doing your work, and we looked at it as a tool. Computer science is now a course which you might take when you get to the post-secondary level. We don't have courses in computer science. We have computer use, and we're trying to teach students how to apply the use of this through various applications. So that's why we're trying to change the engineering technologies, including technology applications, as a content area above. So this is where they're going to be using the computer as the tool. I I had some discussions with various folks on the Education Committee and elsewhere as well, and they all felt that this, when we have computer science, we're talking post-secondary education type level. We are going above, beyond the secondary level. So we're looking at computer use.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Khan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairman Ladd, as we look at this, we should envision, let me back up. In education rules, it's very clear what the curriculum requirements are for high school graduation, right?
That's correct. Well, where it shows you your required courses and your competencies for graduation, yes.
So
20
we can see
credits.
the 14
Yes.
required and then the
Yes.
8 electives.
Right.
And we should be viewing this set of standards as a whole. It's one basket of study that a school can provide this curriculum, this basket of courses, of curriculum as a whole. And that's what this is suggesting. It's not saying, doesn't tell us how many credits in any one area somebody needs to take. It's just that the curriculum in some manner in every high school needs to contain these topics.
That's correct, and I think as reflective of that, the constitutional quote I read at the very beginning, it's not just merely the reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's preparing for a person to be functional in our society. And we looked at, for example, several years back, should we be changing the mathematics requirement from 3 years to 4 years of a math credit? We did by doing it through embedding the fourth year into in a course which is approved by the local school board, where they're using the mathematics. We found that there was a hole in that senior year and kids were coming out not prepared. So you're correct. It's not the, we can say it's a half credit here, a credit here, you have to have 3 of this and that. It's the whole child we're looking at and preparing for being functional in career and pathways they're choosing after they leave secondary education.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's important. And this has traveled through the legislature with a lot of conversation.
Initially, when the bill was introduced, I don't think there have been many bills that we've had in the House, or probably all in the Senate as well, that have heard so much comment, and at times negative comment, as to you're taking this giant leap, and you're putting my subject I teach, physical education, in the back seat, or it's no longer a requirement of the content of an adequate education. That's not where we are with this bill. We're trying to go back to the model that you're speaking to, Senator.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I see none. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
David Benedetto?
Good morning, Senators. Thank you very much for your time this morning. I'd like to speak in opposition to this bill. I unfortunately missed the very beginning of this hearing, but it seems clear to me that the objective, or at least from the previous speaker, it seems like the objective is to get financial literacy in, and computer science is being kind of cut without much consideration for that. So I'd like to give a little bit of background information. So in 2015, the STEM task force, Governor Hassan's STEM task force, released a report that recommended coding, in other words, computer programming, to modernize the New Hampshire curriculum. From 16 to 18, I worked at the New Hampshire Department of Education as the STEM coordinator. And basically my main objective was to establish computer science in the K-12 curriculum to modernize STEM education. So during the time I worked there, we had a change from Governor Hassan to Governor Sununu, change in leadership at the New Hampshire Department of Education, and support for this continued. It's bipartisanly supported. We developed numerous standards. We developed professional educator standards for computer science educators, which has allowed for the creation of pre-service preparation programs that lead to credentials in computer science education. We developed academic standards, which were adopted in August 18. And in June 18th, as one of the members alluded to earlier, Governor Sununu signed New Hampshire House Bill 1674 to law, which added computer science and was bipartisanly supported. All of these policies were developed by a lot of people with a lot of hours put into it, lots and lots and lots of stakeholder engagement, educators, business members, and on and on. These standards are essential for civic participation, for economic, the economic future of New Hampshire, and for our national security. Many states are aggressively adopting computer science policies. You can, a quick Google search, you can find EdWeek articles, you can find endless articles about this. A couple of statistics. In 2017, 6 states had K-12 computer science standards. In 2018, when New Hampshire adopted ours, that was up to 22 states. In 2021, it was up to 39 states. That's from a report that was issued last year, the 2021 State of the State Computer Science in K-12. Maybe what he said was true years ago, but now computer science is taught in K-12. It's taught in K-12 in New Hampshire widely. We've been actually at the forefront of this. I think that's pretty much my, the major things that I have to say. As far as financial literacy, I don't object to that. I think it fits with economics. And, that's great and should certainly be considered, but not at the expense of computer science. That would be a huge step backward.
Could you just state your name for the record, please?
Oh, sure. My name is David Benedetto, and I'm currently a lecturer at University of New Hampshire in the Department of Computer Science, and also a STEM education doctoral student at Tufts University.
Thank you. Senator Shardy?
Good morning. Thank you for your testimony. So if all parties were to agree, and it would be amended to where it would say computer science and computer use, I'm just asking if that would be a better plan.
Yeah, so the way it is currently, computer science and digital literacy effectively refers to computer use. And then also those are spelled out in greater detail farther down in the policy. So in the 306, the one that you see under consideration is the top level, and then farther down there's the 306.44, which further expands upon the definition of computer science education. And similarly, there is another, I'm not sure of the number for digital literacy, but there is another area that expands on digital literacy. And that's the one that is related to effectively using computers in, across all of the subject areas, which is also very important. And whether that's called computer literacy or computer use or something else, I think is, a matter of semantics. The field is familiar with the term digital literacy. Technology integration, it was formerly called technology integration prior to being renamed digital literacy in the 2018 bill.
Any other questions from the committee members? So I guess I'll have to ask you, how do you define computer science?
So computer science is...
So wait a minute, I haven't finished yet.
Oh, sure.
Would you consider a kindergartner capable of doing computer science?
Yes, I absolutely would. So for kindergartners, for example, there are manipulatives, like hands-on manipulatives. So there are, Tufts develops a thing called Kibo Connect Robotics, where you can scan. Basically, you program by putting blocks together in a sequence of the things that you want the robot to do. And then you take the robot and you scan the blocks, and then the robot will do the actions that are being programmed by the blocks. And so it's completely like physical, and the students or the kids are playing with the blocks and everything, but it's absolutely the fundamentals of computer science, algorithms, program development, debugging. So we teach physics in high school, right? And we teach, physical science all the way through. So we teach physical science from kindergarten all the way up through the highest levels of, graduate specialization. And, we recognize that it's a whole spectrum. For math, for science, for all of these, there are fundamental skills that can be developed at a young age and continually developed. And those skills are, it's similar for computer science, that those skills can be developed early. In fact, programming is like the essential skill involved in computer science, but computer science can be programming, it can be robotics, it can be computer networks, computational data analysis. So they're all different aspects of computer science, but they mostly all rely on computer programming. And learning to program a computer is actually kind of similar to language acquisition. So we know that for language acquisition, when students start younger, they're more easily can become fluent in that language. And so it's similar is true of computer science. The earlier they start to develop these skills, the more comfortable that they can be in working with computers in a complex manner, which I think a quick look around can tell us that that's a pretty important skill moving forward.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee members? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is it for people who wanted to speak. I have a virtual sign-up sheet with 27 people in support, 1 opposed, and the people here have signed up. There are 5 supporting. It's a total of 2 opposition. Anybody in the audience has anything to add to this? If not, I will close the hearing on House Bill 1671. So you can take that. And we will move right into House Bill 1627. And the sponsor is Representative Hill. Is there somebody? Whatever, is there anybody else here who is going to present it instead of Representative Hill? Representative?
I believe I'm one of the sponsors.
So I just want to make an announcement. So there is no standing room in this room. So if you plan to testify or speak on this bill, please feel free to take a seat. If you are just listening in, there is a live stream, and I think the committee would kindly ask that you utilize the live stream so folks who would like to testify on this bill can be in the room. Thank you.
Denise doesn't have one.
So Representative Wiley, you're testifying for Representative Hill.
Yes, I will. I'm
Okay.
I'm a
Thank
sponsor
you.
as well.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Senators. I'm Representative Ken Weiler, Rockingham 13, towns of Hampstead and Kingston. We just finished with this a week ago in the Finance Committee, where the amendment was added. The growth of the Education Freedom Account has surpassed our earlier estimates. In order to assure the public has access to information on the programs involved, and we as the appropriators have accountability for the funds dispersed and some measure of the effectiveness of the program, it is important to have a full-time administrator in the Department of Education. A late amendment to this bill adds participation in a demonstration project using direct certification into the free and reduced meals program by having Medicaid work with USDA to give Medicaid-eligible students automatic enrollment in free and reduced meals program. This amendment was controversial, probably the reason why many people oppose this bill, countered an effort with 6 floor amendments to discourage the process. In the end, the committee amendment prevailed and all the others did not. There is reason to be wary of the amendment. It adds $60 million to be given to school districts that list free and reduced meals students. I've always felt that this free and reduced meals should have some accountability, because most of the money does not pay for food, but is a grant with no accountability. There was little time to discuss this issue when the amendment was introduced, so I welcome your ideas. And that's 1627, a short bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you. Representative Mary Heath?
Thank you, committee members. And for the record, my name is Mira Heath, Hillsborough 14, and I serve on the Finance Committee. Also a longtime educator, and one of those people that used to have to go out and make sure that all those free and reduced lunch forms were filled out for children over the years. Worked as in Title I. But my purpose here this morning is to talk a little bit about the bill. The bill does two things. It does in finance, House Finance, we actually funded, prorated the funding for a full-time administrator for the EFAs. And secondly, as Representative Weiler spoke about, a non-germane amendment was added. And I want to emphasize, the purpose of this amendment is to give the Department of Education and Health and Human Services the authority to apply for a demonstration pilot project for Medicaid direct certification administered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The education reports that participation in the pilot would result in better information about the number of children for free and reduced lunch. Over the years, as an educator, we've seen so many children who really, for some reason or another, folks haven't filled out the forms. And across the country, this has long been a debate. What is a better means to come up with calculating free and reduced numbers to be used in our adequacy numbers, to be used to, in New Hampshire, we use those numbers to direct Title I funds. It's an important number, and we want it to be as accurate as possible. If trying or applying for this pilot does not necessarily mean we're going to jump into this methodology. It means that we're going to explore it. 27 other states right now are participating in the pilot. There'd be a lot of benefits all the way around. For one thing, we'd have better, as I said, better adequacy information. Our numbers would be more accurate. Secondly, we'd also probably see more students eligible for free and reduced lunch, which in fact may increase the adequacy figures in terms of the funding to different school districts. And finally, for school districts themselves, the paperwork, the amount of paperwork that superintendents and school people have to fill out every year would be reduced significantly. And the biggest benefit of all is the children, because we'll see more children getting free and reduced lunch. We know that kids do better in school when they are eating. Just all the way around, it has so many benefits. So I am here to support HB 1627. I think this is something that, again, I want to emphasize, this is giving authority to the department to enter into a pilot. This does not necessarily mean that we will adopt the methodology of pairing Medicaid. It gives authority to the Department of Ed and Health and Human Services to do a data match of information so that automatically we get the exact number of kids eligible for Medicaid. And that's my testimony, and I'm happy to take any questions. And the department is here to do they know all the details.
Thank you very much. Senator Hennessy. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Don't see one. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Representative Alicia Leakes.
Thank you. Representative Alicia Lekas, Hillsborough 37. And we are passing out a copy that comes from the USDA that explains the application process, et cetera. Unfortunately, when we had such small amount of time when this was introduced before we were actually voting on it, that we did not have a chance to do this. And so since then, many of us have gone through what the actual details of the program are, and it's rather disturbing. So to let you know, the first part, the non-germane amendment, the very first part, I am in support of. I have no problem with that. It is the non-germane amendment that was added with the USDA, and I will highlight some of those since you haven't had a chance to look at it. Hopefully you will have time after this before you exec to actually go through the whole program. And I want to remind everybody of the amendment to the Constitution that we passed just a couple years ago with over 80% of the populace in support of. An individual's right to live free from governmental intrusion in private or personal information is natural, essential, and inherent. And on page 10, if you have that in front of you, if you look under Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Support, it says the state Medicaid agency may share individually identifiable health information relating to Medicaid eligibility and enrollment with the agency administering the school meals program. So that goes immediately against our Constitution, where we're not supposed to be sharing people's private information. Second thing I want to note, on the next page, page 11, requirements for state agency participation. And so that you know, you pretty much have to do the whole program before you even apply to do the program. All they're doing is assisting you, looking at what you've done already. So you pretty much have to set it up already. All of the software, all of the stuff you have to set up within your state before you even apply. And then what they're going to do for you is they're just going to look at it and say, okay, here's some tweaks you can do. So beforehand, amongst other things, you have to have the ability through an automated information system to assess modified adjusted gross income and non-modified adjusted gross income, family income, before the application of any expenses block or other income disregard as applicable, and identify family income meeting the 130% and 185% standards for free and reduced price school meals. And so you have to set up this whole system. You have to spend the money up front to set up this whole system before you even apply. And they don't help with that. There's no money in that. In fact, it says no federal funds will be made available to the state agencies specifically for the purpose of participating in the demonstration projects through this RFA. However, once selected, administrative expenses associated with preparation for the demonstration may be allowable costs under state administrative expense funds and reallocable funds. Also, state agencies applying and selected to participate with Medicaid may pursue grant funding available during the receptive demonstration project. So up front, we have all this, we have to do all this work up front and basically come up with the solution to the project before we even apply. And that's, and we don't get aid for that. We have to pay for that. Then what we get from them, at any rate, what we get from them is they'll look at what we've done and tweak it. So we have to send them before they do it, we have to send them all of our data. So we have to do the program, we have to come up with all of the mechanics of doing it, we have to set up the computer systems, we have to make them talk to each other, we have to make them kick out select the students, and we have to have a method for then going over all of that and make sure that we've got the right students, that we haven't kicked out students by their program, by that system that say reduced lunch, who've applied and are getting free lunch. There's all kinds of checks and balances that we have to do, none of which is all before we ever get their program. And then what they're going to do is we send all of our data, our personally identifiable data, to the federal government, our systems and everything, and including our historical data.
Well, I should let you know that we're not accepting this bill today. We're waiting for much more.
Right, I was
information.
just trying to give you the information, but we have to send, our historical data and our current data and our upcoming data, all of this stuff that we have agreed with our citizens in our Constitution that we're not going to be sending out, we're sending it to the federal government. And what they're going to do is they're going to say, oh, here's some ways you can tweak it. Here's some ways you can make it better. Here's some way, that's what we're getting out of this program. And as you heard testimony, the school systems have done everything they can think of to get people to apply for free and reduced, to fill out the applications, and they don't know why it's not happening. Well, I've talked to plenty of parents. In fact, my daughter's best friend, and she certainly needed the money, but her mom was like, that's none of anybody's business. That's not the school's business. I don't want to fill out these forms. That's not their business. And so parents are choosing to not send their information to the school district. And we're saying we should go around them and figure out how to get that information anyways and pass it on to the schools and pass it on to the federal government when they're choosing not to fill out these forms. That doesn't seem to be what we as a state should be doing. And then the comment that, well, we can decide not to, we can't even decide not to.
Well, I think you are probably addressing things beyond what this bill actually
No, because
establishes the position of education freedom account
no,
administrator.
it's the amended part I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm looking at the amended. Oh, I see, okay.
Yes, I completely agree with the first part. I have no problem with that. We passed that out of education.
Okay.
And the problem is, it says we shall apply for, and if we get it, we will follow up. But it's more than that. In order to apply, we have to sign a letter of commitment saying in our application, verifying that we are going to follow up. That's part of the application process. So we can't just apply and then say, oh, well, we don't want to do it. No, we have to sign a letter of commitment when we apply saying that we will be doing this. So we don't even have that option. So those are the things that most of us found out after we voted on this, okay? And we want to make sure that you are well aware and aren't stuck in the same situation we were when you go to vote. So my request, again, would be pass the first part, get rid of the second part. Thank you very much.
Questions from the committee members? Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Senator Ward, and thank you, Representative, for coming before us this morning. Now, granted, we just got
Right.
this, so I haven't had a lot of time to go through it, but I did notice, like, you've been using the word shall a lot, like things that we have to do. But in page 10, and so this is going to take me a while to go through this and really understand.
Right.
But you had pointed out, sharing individually identifiable health information, how it conflicts with the Constitution. But it uses the word may in the first paragraph, may share, and it uses in the last paragraph on that page, it starts off with the state Medicaid agency may enter into. So what I'm trying to, and I don't know if it's at this particular moment
It's-
or over the next few days, trying to understand where may and shall apply in here, because this says may, so why do we have to
Okay.
share anything if it says we may?
That's the beginning application part, but if we are accepted, which we have agreed that if we are accepted, we're going to go along with it. That's one of the things on page 12. It says that we agree to provide FNS with access to all needed historical archive data and data collected and obtained throughout the demonstration as needed. FNS will collect data from participating state agencies and LEAs to analyze and evaluate the effectiveness of direct certification with the Medicaid program. The state agency will be responsible for collaborating with FNS in collecting the data necessary for the demonstration and providing it to FNS. The methodology and details for data collection will be provided to state agencies following the selection for the demonstration. So yes, we don't have to provide our data with the application, but we have to agree that if we are accepted, we will follow through. And if we are accepted, then we have to provide our data.
Do you want to finish and follow up? Yeah. Because I don't think we need to read
All right.
this whole thing
I'll-
right now.
No, I don't, but
Because I think-
I'll hang on till I learn more about it. Can I say something about the underlying bill?
Yes, we just got this, so I think that all of us need to read.
Oh, correct. I just want to speak about the underlying, an education freedom account administrator. So there's a fiscal note attached, 115,000.
I think we'll ask the department on those questions.
Okay,
Yeah, that was at the request of the department that we put that in, so.
Senator Hennessy has a question for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, could you send Ava a link to this document? Because we're missing page 12 and 13.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's where I got it from. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, it's not here.
Are you all set?
I mean, I can talk with the sponsor or the department. I'm just curious why, where this was supposed to, save us money, where we're going to be paying for somebody to run the program. And I'm curious about the intersection with the scholarship organization and who runs the scholarship organization, who seems to handle a lot of this. So what's contracted out and what is with the department? And that's what I want to be able to kind of understand better. Okay,
I think
that's all.
somebody else probably will have a better handle on that.
That would be the department. We put that in as, at the request of the department, so they would be able to answer that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don Johnson?
Good morning. Yeah, it's morning still, right? I've been up a while. Thank you, Senators. My name is Representative Don Johnson. I represent Laconia, District 3. This bill, the main bill of it for the administrative, I completely support. What I like to see is that the non-germane amendment that was added at the last minute, we tried to fight it on the floor, as you heard. It didn't work. A lot of people didn't understand what this amendment was. Once we got out of that day, I started doing some digging, and which is what you see in front of you. I was kind of scared to see that this was going to be a must program once it got implemented. We would have to come up with the software, as it was mentioned. We would have to do all the implementation. And I'm going to give you a couple examples because I've talked to some citizens in my community. And one example would be you have a grandparent who is now raising their grandchildren. They are on Medicare or Medicaid because they are retired. They have more than sufficient need to supply their kid with food. They don't need to, they choose not to apply for free or reduced lunch because they can take care of themselves. But they're in the system because they have Medicaid or Medicaid because they are retired. This system, this program would automatically tell them if and label their child a free reduced child because he's already in the system and they have legal custody of the child. To me, that is horrifying. I've talked to several grandparents that I know that have custody of their children, and they said they would be absolutely appalled if their information was shared just because they now are raising their grandchildren, for whatever the reason may be. For me, any parent who chooses not to enroll into the free or reduced lunch program, that's their choice. For whatever the reason is, we as government officials should never tell people what they should do and not do when it comes to their personal information and their personal finance. That's their choice. You know, I grew up with a single mom. She chose not to because she worked hard. I talked to another citizen. She's a single mom. She works really hard. She only uses the Medicaid, the children's Medicaid piece of it to help her with her medical expenses. She does everything else herself. And she's working really hard to better herself to get a job where she won't have to use that. When I told her about what this bill would do, she said, I will immediately never refile to get medical help again through the state because I don't want my information shared with the federal government. This is my private information, and nobody has the right to share my information. We've got people all over the state that want to keep their personal information personal. And for us to override that, to me, it goes against everything that we should be standing up for. You know, you had I think, Senator, you had mentioned about the word must or shall, and put my glasses on so I can see it. On page 7 of that, the word must it says the state participating in the demonstration project awarded under the RFA must conduct the direct certification for both free and reduced meals in every participated LEA. That's a must. And so they're telling us we must put this information out there. You know, as a first-time rep, I'm learning a lot. The words must, shall, may makes a huge difference. And I would hate to see something like this go into effect, knowing it's nothing that our citizens would want.
Thank you very much. So tell everybody we're not executing this bill today. There's more work that needs to be done and more information that we need to have. So thank you very much. Any questions from the committee members? I see none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg Moore.
Thank you, Madam
We're
Chair.
losing people here because they're going up testifying on their bills and other House bills and
It's
House.
just that those House committees don't respect this committee. I apologize. For the record, my name is Greg Moore. I am the State Director with Americans for Prosperity. I'm here today to testify in opposition, but exclusively to Section 3 of House Bill 1627. And for those folks in the audience, they've left the as-introduced version out, so it doesn't include, the one they left out here does not include the item in this bill that everyone's talking about. So I wanted to make clear that the committee, the people in the audience might not even know what you're talking about because it's not in the bill that was handed out. Look, I've been in and around the State House for going on 20 years. There hasn't been a single year where there hasn't been some effort to change adequacy, and this bill does change adequacy with the program that we've been talking about relative to the direct certification. $60 million a year is obviously a big number. I know this committee has worked through this very same issue with Senate Bill 420 this year. Every year that I've been around, there's been at least 1 or 2 bills that change adequacy, and this year is no different. But that's not even our primary concern about the amended version of House Bill 1627. Our concerns are primarily twofold. The first and foremost is the enrollment of people from one means-tested program, the Medicaid program, into another means-tested program without their consent. The automatic enrollment, or I would describe it as an involuntary enrollment in one program. It's not a new concept. It's something, frankly, that's been the holy grail of adherence to the Cloward pivot strategy for decades. When I was working at the Department of Health and Human Services, there were a lot of efforts to try to have other programs where if you come in and you sign up for one program, they would automatically enroll you into others. So this concept is not new, but it is a bad concept. People should be signed up for the programs that they want to be signed up for. They should not be involuntarily signed up for other programs. There may well be reasons, as prior speakers have mentioned, why someone might want to sign up for one program but not sign up for another. And that should be their choice, and it should be something that they make. The second primary concern is the privacy concern. Obviously, you're taking Medicaid data and you're sharing it from the Department of Health and Human Services, now with the federal U.S. Department of Agriculture, as well as the State Department of Education. And that obviously creates two additional opportunities for data breaches and two additional opportunities for identity theft. And moreover, I think it's very much inconsistent with the policy of the Senate and what they've done this year. What this bill does is intentionally shares HHS data with other groups. Earlier this year, the Senate passed Senate Bill 423, which is relative to closed group referrals. And what that bill intentionally did was limit the amount of HHS data that is shared with other groups. So this bill right here would go in exactly the opposite direction than where the Senate has been gone this year, which has been to add more privacy protections to the Department of Health and Human Services data. And I think that for that reason, I would encourage you to strike Section 3 from this bill, and Sections 1 and 2. If the department feels that it's an important and necessary position to keep, well, certainly I think you should listen to the department and see if that's a valid concern. I have no way of judging that. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's see. Robert Berry?
Good morning.
John Landry, right?
Good morning, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Robert Berry. I'm General Counsel to the Division of Medicaid with the Department of Health and Human Services.
And good morning. My name is Dawn Landry. I'm a Medicaid Policy Administrator with the Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you very much.
So we're here to testify in support of Section 3. The department supports this section because we believe it will reduce the administrative burden on parents and guardians towards receiving free and reduced lunches and meals for their children, and the hope is it'll increase access to meals for eligible children. We believe it's an important step towards ensuring that children are receiving proper nutrition and that it will support the overall health and well-being of the population we serve. And we're happy to take any questions you may have at this point.
Thank you. Questions? Senator Hennessy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for coming before us today. Can you tell me what are the different requirements for Medicaid eligibility versus free and reduced lunch eligibility?
I can tell you, I can't tell you what the difference is with SNAP because I'm not a SNAP program specialist, but we still have to follow what the USDA guidelines is, and that is that we can only refer children who have for free lunch at 130% FPL and for reduced lunch at 185 FPL. Medicaid income for children goes up to 318%. So any child who is over 185 and above would not be sent on the file.
So this does not automatically qualify as a student that is on Medicaid for free and reduced lunch?
Only if the child would be between up to 130%, we would send that. I don't know if the Department of Ed has further information on how it is determined, but we would send that for the free lunch and then up to 185 for reduced lunch.
Okay, follow-up? Follow-up. Can you tell me, just looking, and I have not read this document that the committee just received, but looking at the requirements for the USDA program, it says that applications for participation in demonstration projects are due September 30th, yet we heard testimony that the two departments would have to set up a big process and reconciliation system. Is this something that the departments could even do by September 30th of this year?
We already have a file transfer set up with the Department of Education for the SNAP and TANF programs, so it would just be modifying it potentially. We haven't actually started looking at it.
Because you're opening up a can of worms, because I want to know why you have a file set up with the department for those programs, and why you're transferring that data to Department of Ed.
I think the Department of Ed could speak to that better than I could.
Senator Hennessy. No, I'm sorry. Senator Rishardi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Thank you for coming today. So I just, again, we haven't had time to read all of this, so flying a little bit blind here, but the comments that we heard about the cost to the schools and the privacy issue, could you speak to that?
We can't speak to the cost of the schools because that's really outside the purview of the department. But as far as privacy issues, we are mandated to share minimum necessary for the Department of Education to accomplish its job. So we wouldn't be sending everything we have about an individual. It would be the minimum necessary for the purposes of that program.
But follow up? So if it's, we don't know the cost, and the cost could be prohibitive, I don't want to be, we don't want to be duplicating efforts.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, if the schools are already managing thus far the way it is, and it may cost more to participate in this program. So would it make sense to leave things as is?
Well, the Department of Health and Human Services, we don't anticipate a cost on our end. I can't speak to the Department of Education or anything to that, but our cost should be minimal for implementing this section.
Okay, I'll speak to the Department of Education. Thank you.
I don't see any other questions from here. Do you have anything you want us to have, any information, or?
There was a question earlier that I didn't get a chance to write down. Was it related to the SNAP and the WIC issue? Is there any other questions the committee would have us research to provide? I thought I heard a question. I was trying to write it down furiously.
Madam Chair, well, the committee does not have an updated fiscal note, so we've heard numbers of $60 million go around. We just want to get an understanding of, one, why is this needed? What's the difference in the kid populations? Is it the program? And again, we haven't been able to read this information because we just received it. Do they have the same requirements?
Okay.
What information? What is the minimal amount of information that you'll be sharing, and what exactly is that information? We've heard testimony about privacy rights and parents not wanting to share information.
Sure.
So minimal is not really defined in our statutes, so we need to know what.
We can give you a better idea of what we're looking at. We did get a request from the LBA for an updated fiscal note worksheet. We are currently working on that. As I said, we're anticipating it's going to be minimal cost from the Health and Human Services perspective. I cannot speak to education.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to make a note for these kind folks who plan to get information to the committee. We have a deadline of next Tuesday to act on this bill. So if we could get that sooner rather than later, that would be excellent. Thank you.
Jessica. I'll just give it to her. We're running short on time here, so,
Okay, I just wasn't sure if I should wait.
okay.
Good morning, I'm Jessica Gorin with New Hampshire Hunger Solutions. We are supporting the amendment to require the New Hampshire Department of Education to participate in the USDA demonstration project to directly certify children who are receiving Medicaid and with qualifying incomes for free and reduced meals. Medicaid direct certification means that children who are already receiving Medicaid and those families' income is below 130% of the federal poverty level and 185% for reduced price, would be directly certified through electronic data matching for free and reduced meals at school without their families needing to submit an application. Medicaid direct certification has numerous benefits for children and for schools. It ensures that the most at-risk food insecure children will be able to access nutritious meals at school without their parents having to fill out cumbersome forms. The benefits of school meals to children are many. Children who eat breakfast and lunch in school have improved academic performance, have reduced behavioral problems, make fewer trips to the nurse with stomach aches and headaches, have stronger attendance rates, and have stronger graduation rates. Increased graduation rates also lead to increased annual salaries. The benefits to schools include likely increase in free and reduced counts that result in greater adequacy grants, and also higher reimbursement rates for their school food service programs, bringing more money for staff and into the community. Reduced administrative costs related to processing free and reduced meals. Additionally, evidence from other states shows that direct certification substantially reduces school meal certification errors by replacing self-reported income information with verified sources. It also would allow for, if more children are directly eligible for free and reduced meals in districts, it is likely that more schools would be eligible to implement the USDA's community eligibility provision, which allows high poverty schools to offer school meals at no charge to all students, regardless of family income, without an application. Unpaid student meal debt. In addition, expanding direct certification will help schools to avoid the problem of unpaid student meal debt. Instead of using resources to collect debts from families who qualify but have not applied for free meals, school nutrition staff can focus on serving students nutritious meals. At-risk students will no longer need to worry about paying for school meals they are eligible to receive for free. There are 27 other states participating in this project now, and have been for several years. And in Texas, Medicaid direct certification was first implemented in October of 2017. From 2017 to 2020, the number of students directly certified increased by 48%, and schools realized substantial reductions in paperwork burden on schools. Similarly, in Massachusetts, districts have seen less burden on both households and school districts. And in Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, and certain school districts in California that participated in the first year of Medicaid direct certification pilots, 11.6% more children were directly certified for free meals. Medicaid direct certification carries less stigma. Families with low incomes who might not have been willing to apply for free and reduced meals do apply for Medicaid. And state already does direct certification for families on SNAP and TANF. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much. Now we have the Department of Education.
Good morning. What piece would you like to talk about first? EFAs or direct certification for Medicaid children? Because I know there's two very different pieces of this bill.
I saw that. Well, why don't you make a quick thing on the EFAs? The admins.
Yes, sorry, for the record, I'm Caitlin Davis. I'm a director at the Department of Education.
I'm Kelly Rambo. I'm the Administrator for Nutrition and Program Services.
So EFAs first?
Yes, why don't you do that?
So this bill was originally introduced by Representative Greg Hill on behalf of the Department of Education to request an administrator for the EFA program. The Department of Education is implementing the EFA program as passed in HB2 this summer. We have had a relatively successful first implementation of the EFA program. However, it has created a lot of administrative work for the Department of Education that current employees are absorbing in their current positions, as well as the work that they are required to do statutorily, either in state or federal law. As you know, there is approximately 1,800 kids participating in EFA programs, and this creates a fair amount of work from the Department of Education, including collecting data on those children, calculating payments, and getting information from the scholarship organization. As with every program started by the legislature, we would like to remind you to not start new programs without giving us administrative staff to oversee the various different programs, because of, if you really want a program implemented correctly, you need somebody to dedicate their full-time job to that program. This program has not come without a lot of challenges as far as data systems, as far as processes, because we do not have other programs that work this way at the department. So we have had to reconfigure our systems to collect data in a new way. We have had to come up with new systems to make payments for these EFA students. And so through that whole process, that is why we are looking for the administrator to oversee this program.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator Hennessy.
Thank you. Director Davis. Can you tell me, in the administrative costs that we pay the EFA program, why there wouldn't be enough money in that bucket of funds that we could then allocate to your department?
I'm not sure what the scholarship organization is using those administrative costs for at this time, as we don't collect that data. However, the law right now, the EFA law, allows the administrative money to go directly to the scholarship organization and not to the Department of Education. The scholarship organization cannot do the work that we are doing because we are collecting the data, calculating the payments. It's kind of an independent third-party work that we're doing for the payment. No different than we do for charter school children or regular public school kids for adequacy payments for charter schools or whatnot. So right now, for example, we upload information, or the scholarship organization uploads the student data to participate in the EFA programs, and then we match that information with school information. So we help the scholarship organization establish SASA numbers for those kids. We then make sure that those kids are not dually enrolled, and what we do is we help with the relationships between the scholarship organization and the school districts to say, yes, both the scholarship organization and Concord School District have reported Caitlin Davis. Well, both of you don't have that child, so let's make sure that between the two of you, we are appropriately reporting that kid and paying the appropriate party for that kid. So that's the type of thing that we do all the time in our day-to-day work at the Department of Education. This scholarship or the EFA program has created just additional work relative to these children.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we move over
Right. So
to talk about.
And I will start off talking about the direct certification program, and I'll have Kelly fill in where my knowledge lacks.
Okay.
So right now, I would like to remind the committee that free and reduced lunch data is used as a measurement of poverty in education. We don't have other measurements of poverty. We don't have student identifiable census information. We do not collect family income at the Department of Education or participation in other different programs that might be used as an indicator of poverty. So our main indicator of poverty in New Hampshire and in most states in education is free and reduced lunch. People often assume that free and reduced lunch, when we're talking about it from a data perspective at the Department of Education, that it is used solely in providing children meals. And that is what Kelly's Bureau deals with, making sure that children are receiving meals and appropriate nutrition standards as defined by the Department of Agriculture. The rest of the Department of Education is also using free and reduced lunch data. The heaviest and most impactful piece of that flows through the state budget is through the adequate education funding formula. The adequate education funding formula gives $1,893 to every free and reduced lunch kid in the state this year. And that money is used by the school districts. There's no kind of requirements for the school districts to use that money for a specific thing. They have the ability to use it on whatever they feel is appropriate to help those children's needs. And it is not used for free and reduced lunch. That's one kind of thing that I want to point out, because people are very frequently confused that the money in the adequacy formula is the money that is providing meals. The meal money is provided directly from the Federal Department of Agriculture and flows through Kelly's Bureau. That information in the free and reduced lunch formula is also used for various state and federal aid programs, including that number is used in adequacy, in building aid. It's used in our title formulas and throughout other pieces of the department. That information that we are getting, we collect from the school districts. So right now, there's two pieces of that information. We are collecting free and reduced lunch application participants from the Department of Education, from the school districts, meaning that we get at the Department of Education a list of the children whose parents have completed and been determined eligible for free and reduced lunch. And that's the data that we use for adequacy and the other programs that I just used. In addition, in 2004, there was a requirement from the U.S. Department of Agriculture for states to participate in a program known as direct certification. So that went into effect in 2004. The New Hampshire Department of Education began participating in 2006. And direct certification means that people that are participating in other federal assistance programs, meaning SNAP, TANF, WIC, and in the state foster care children, are also eligible for free and reduced lunch meals, and then also included in our total free and reduced lunch numbers. So that has been in place since 2006 in this state, and the way that works is we get a file from Health and Human Services. We have an MOU. The Department of Education has an MOU with Health and Human Services to collect that data or to get that data. What we get is we get name, date of birth, first, last name, date of birth, resident town, and federal program that they were participating in. And we use that to include those numbers in our free and reduced lunch numbers. So that, I believe, was one of the questions that came up before. If we were to expand the program to include Medicaid participation, we don't, right now, I can't tell you if additional information would need to be collected from the New Hampshire Department of Education, or for the New Hampshire Department of Education from the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, because we do need to work through the logistics of applying for a program. However, that information is information that we do not remit back up to the Federal Department of Health and Human Services, Federal Department of Education, or Federal Department of Agriculture in its current form. I don't know what Health and Human Services does with that information, but we do not provide any sort of personal identifiable information up. We do provide aggregate numbers, but not personal identifiable data. That's what we have, and that's what we're working through right now. I think there's been some questions on why these two bills were married together, or these two ideas. And Representative Umberger would be the better person to kind of have that conversation. But I believe it was something as simple as this was potentially the only education bill that she had in Division II Finance that she was able to attach to by the appropriate timeline. So, and she felt it was a very important concept given the free and reduced lunch numbers that have been very low for the last 2 years now because of the Department of Agriculture waivers. So I know that was a lot of information I just threw at you, but there are just two of you now, so.
You always have numbers that you throw at us, always. Senator Hennessy.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Who likes numbers?
I like numbers. Okay, so SNAP, TANF, foster care, and WIC.
Correct.
That data you get from DHHS.
Correct.
Which you only share aggregate numbers with the federal government? Is that what I heard you say?
Correct.
Okay. All of those four program requirements, are those the same exact for free and reduced lunch? And do those kids actually get free or reduced lunch? Other than adequacy?
So they do get free and reduced lunch, or they are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and we provide that information to the school district so that they can provide the child with free and reduced lunch. Yes.
And sorry, so SNAP, TANF, foster care, and WIC.
Correct.
How do you know if the kids would qualify for free lunch or reduced lunch?
Right now, they all qualify for free.
Okay.
That is a question with this program as we're kind of exploring these possibilities. It does look like for Medicaid, we would need to parse whether they're free or reduced. And so how we will do that, I'm not sure yet. We will need to work through the data side of things with that. Likely we'll talk to other states or see if the Department of Agriculture has an idea for us, what is the best way to translate that information, whether it's Health and Human Services doing the determination or them sharing information with us that we would need to do the determination.
Follow up. So the way, I'm assuming you've read this document that we received today?
Yes.
Okay. So the way that it's written and the requirements that they're going to require of the state, you, just from the testimony I've heard today, you would take out the students who actually have filled out the free or reduced lunch form, and you would take out those students who qualify for SNAP, TANF, foster care, or WIC, and then that would be the only data population that would be sent to the federal government, and what data would be sent, do you know?
So from our understanding, they are going to be looking for aggregate free and/or reduced lunch numbers, not broken down by the federal programs. So we would be saying, yes, there are 27,000 kids in the state of New Hampshire that are eligible for free lunch and 17,000 kids that are eligible for reduced lunch programs. By school district, I believe that's our understanding of how that would work as of right now. But we wouldn't say that, and of that, 10 kids are TANF and 17 are Medicaid, and the rest came over from an application.
Follow up again? So the testimony that we heard about data privacy, about sending specific data about individuals to the federal government, are we not required to do that?
We don't believe that we're required to send student identifiable data to the federal government.
Or parent identifiable?
Or parent identifiable data. We actually, at the department, will not be receiving parent identifiable data either. I just want to be clear. So we would get, unless somehow required for the identification, but as my understanding right now, we would receive that Caitlin Davis is, not that Caitlin Davis's parents are, that Caitlin Davis, who is age 5 through 17 or whatever the parameters that we end up setting around it, is Medicaid participating. So Caitlin Davis, date of birth, resident town, and Medicaid. We believe those are the data fields that would feel, and then potentially either that free or reduced lunch. That one, so that's a new category, and on how we are going to figure out the determination, there are details that need to be worked out on that.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to add to all the previous questions that were asked? Do you think that we got all the information that we need? Great, wonderful, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wants to talk to House Bill 1627? Representative Ladd.
I do have one more question for the department. Sorry, Caitlin, Director Davis. So in the New Hampshire Hunger Solutions form that we just got passed out, it said, children already receiving Medicaid and whose family's income is below 130% of the federal poverty level, or 185, which would be the reduced lunch. So how are we collecting if the kid's on Medicaid and what the parents' information is? Because I think that's the concern that we've heard previously.
So I'm not actually sure. So that, I think, is information we would get directly from Health and Human Services, who would maintain all of the Medicaid information. The way that we do it right now is we have our kids that we know are participating in free and reduced lunch. We have student identifiable information. We will also have the information now coming from Health and Human Services. We will match that to make sure that there's no double payments. We do that right now. Most of it is done through a computer system that does that matching. However, we do probably more than we would like to admit, fair number of hand matching as well, meaning we have a file that came over and this says Caitlin Davis with a C, and this one over here says Caitlin Davis with a K. The computer didn't match this, but name, date of birth, all of it, and the resident town all tie, that's probably the same, and so we do some tying with that way. But that's how that's done right now. So we don't give payments for a free and reduced lunch kid and for a SNAP kid right now. So you get one payment in total. So it wouldn't result in duplicative payments. It would just say the kid is eligible through one way, or now the kid is eligible through multiple ways of determination.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. Representative Ladd, I saw your hand up there.
I'll be very, very quick, Madam Chair. Rick Ladd, Chair Education, Grafton County, for For your information, there's been a subcommittee, a group of finance members from the House Finance and from House Education Policy working on the issue of this Medicaid that we're talking about, the demonstration project, and these other 27 states that are using this as a system to arrive at and identify poverty. One of the concerns we've identified on that subcommittee is that during the recent pandemic, we had a huge problem identifying poverty. We had to go back to year 2019 to gather data. So in a situation like this, our F&R program has not been providing us the data we really need. We also know that between the 8th grade and the 9th grade going through 12th grade, there's a tremendous drop-off in participation in the F&R program. And with that, we realize we are losing dollars. These students are eligible, but they're not submitting the proper paperwork. They're high school kids and oftentimes don't want to be identified as such, needing that type of help. We also know that there are a number of programs which are contingent upon the data we get from F&R. The Carl Perkins money, which we get from the federal government dealing with career technical education, that $6 million each year is contingent upon our identifying poverty in this state amongst our school districts. So what we're anxious to find out is seeking information from this program through the USDA and participating here going to net us a higher revenue stream coming in to support both adequacy and the Carl Perkins. So this whole issue is extremely important. And it may need more research or more consideration and recommendation from the department. However, it's something we should not let go, and we need to pursue and figure out how we're going to identify poverty in this state and in terms of eligibility for adequacy and all those other federal grants which Caitlin Davis referenced, including the Carl Perkins, which we want to see complete double from 17% of our kids to a 34% participation rate in the vocational centers in the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you have a question? Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience who feels that they want to say something additional who have not spoken? Seeing none, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 1627. And we will move right into the next bill. House Bill 1135 is the next one. And the prime sponsor is Representative Fellows. Have a seat.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. You're receiving a copy. You're receiving copies of my written testimony. On the back of that is just a fact sheet, which I'm not planning to speak to. It's just I think most of you have already seen it, but just so you have some idea about the numbers in the program. So I'm Representative Sally Fellows. I represent Plymouth, Holderness, and Hebron, and I'm here to introduce House Bill 1135, requiring a performance audit of the Department of Education Education Freedom Account Program. This is a performance audit, not a financial audit. The purpose of a performance audit is to look at policies and procedures and make sure that the program is adhering to legislative requirements and generally accepted standards for operation. So I worked at the Department of Education for 30 years, and I was involved with both federal and state school funding programs and federal and state audits. And the ETF program is very different from any of the previous states or federal school aid programs. And in my testimony, you can read in the bill required categories to be included in the audit. My testimony just gives you some examples of what the questions that come to mind and why this audit should be performed and how it is so different from what we have ever done before. So, excuse me. The DOE is not managing this program. It's contracted out to a private entity, and the contractor will keep 10% of all the money that's allocated for this program. The parents can utilize 90%. So it's possible that when more students sign up, more money is made available to the contractor. So that's different from any other situation we've ever looked at. School districts, when they get adequacy aid, they always spend it in the year they receive that aid. And the federal programs are generally on a reimbursement basis after they spend it. With the EFA programs, parents don't need to expend their allocation every year. They can accumulate that, and their accounts could, since the funding level can be between $4,000 and $8,000 per student, they can accumulate a significant amount of money in their account. So one important question is, how is the cash being managed that's flowing into this program? Will the contractors keep unspent money in a bank, in stocks, in Bitcoin? We need to know the answer to that. The payouts to the parents, as I said, run between $4,000 and $8,000 per student. This may entice fraudulent claims. So it's very important that the DOE and contractors have safeguards in place to prevent this. So some of the questions that come to mind is, how will they verify the income eligibility? It's pretty straightforward when you just have a family of four, but when you have children of divorced parents, you have blended families, what are the procedures that they're using to identify the income eligibility? And how will the contractor ensure that once somebody qualifies for the program and is in the program, that they're still residents of New Hampshire? I mean, if everything is being money is electronically being transferred, into the parent's account, and they're spending it out of that online account, how do we know if they've moved somewhere else? Also, issue of many people own summer homes here, or they have relatives here. Are those students being signed up because it looks like they live in New Hampshire, but actually they're living with relatives, or they're in a home that's not occupied year-round? Another issue has to do with making sure that students are actually getting an education. As we know, we've seen the data that shows us that many of those students are being, they're in private schools, and we know that they're getting an education if they're using the money for tuition. But what about homeschooled? And there's a requirement that they submit test results or a portfolio to show a student's progress from one year to the next, but there are no standards in place for evaluating those the performance. So do we know these children are actually getting an education? And the last example that I have is, it's a little bit not the thing you would normally see in a performance audit, but because this program is so different, we really have no idea how much it's going to cost from one year to the next. And we know that the original estimate for participation was low, under 50 students for the first year, but it was closer to 2,000. We also know so far that 89% of the students in the program never have attended public school in New Hampshire, and I don't really think that was the expectation when the program was started up. So this is in here just to try to get as much information as possible so we can predict going forward how much money we're going to need to put in the budget for this program. So in conclusion, we need this audit to ensure that state funds are being appropriately managed. If the bill that you just heard, or the original part of the bill that you just heard is enacted, there'll be a program administrator at the Department of Education, and having this audit would be a great help to help them set up the program and know what that administrator should be looking for in dealing with the contractor, and what procedures should be in place at the Department of Education. So that's all I have to say. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. I'll find out. Senator Khan, do you have any questions? I know you just got here, but this is.
No, well, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think your information that you're looking for the performance audit to cover makes great sense. We have a letter from the LBA and the director of the audit division, Steve Smith. I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at it.
Is that the letter that's dated March 7?
Right, yeah. So maybe your thoughts about that, his opinion there.
Well, I can tell you that letter, does not address this bill. That letter is a very generic description of audits. And it does, it says for a new program, on the first page, it says for a new program, it's usually better to wait a couple of years before you do an audit. But there are many different kinds of programs. So for some brand new programs, you would be looking for things like a lot of times they have a goal, like a goal to increase more participation in a particular program. It could be a goal to change something at the Liquor Commission to increase revenue coming in. So if it was a program like that, you would want to give them some time to have that new procedure in place. When they, for example, went to building separate facilities instead of renting most of their facilities, give them time to see, did that really increase revenue? Things like that. This particular program, because there are so many issues that I identified, I think that it's appropriate to get it done sooner. And if you look on page 2, it talks about early audits. And, some of the things are, identify areas needing immediate attention. When I think you're talking about managing millions of dollars and potentially having millions of dollars sitting in an account you don't even know what bank it's in, I think that that would be an immediate need. And I think, as again, I said, I think it'll help the department with setting things up. This letter came about when the bill was in the House, and there was nobody, as far as I can tell, nobody in the House objects to having the audit. The question that came up was as to when the audit should be. So in the House, the original date for effective date was July 1, 2022, this year. And the bill that came out of the House was amended. The only amendment was that date. It changed it to July 2023. But I can tell you that when I developed this bill, I talked to Chris Shea, and one of the things he told me is that with an effective date of July 1, regardless of which year it would be, that a new audit would not start until about October, because the LBA is going to be completely focused on working on, wrapping up the budget for the first couple of months. So I can share that with you. They never do 2 audits of the same agents. Well, I won't say all agencies, but I know for the Department of Education, they would not do 2 audits at the same time. And right now, they're just beginning work on a special ed audit, but that should be well wrapped up by the time we get into next year. The other thing I could share is what this bill, it doesn't, whatever the effective date is, doesn't mean the audit starts that date. And the audit still has to go through those normal procedures of that, I think it's called Joint Audit Oversight Committee. So it still has to go to them, and they'll look at what it says in the bill, and they will discuss with LBA how to refine that and get into more specifics of how it should occur. But the purpose of the bill is to make sure that that audit is done. That joint committee could decide on their own that they wanted to do that audit, but this bill is to ensure that that audit gets done. And I think that they probably have a little bit of latitude. If they wanted to and it fit the schedule, they could probably start it before the effective date if they wanted to do that. That's just my assumption. I don't know for sure. But I think the audit's important. We really...
I'd ask one more question.
Follow-up,
So,
okay.
so as I read the effective date and your description that it's likely to occur after the implementation date, we would have 3 years of data at the point that this would begin. There'd be the fall 21, the fall 22, and the fall 23 entering students, so that if this takes effect July 1, it's not like it's a beginning program as to the extent to which the letter anticipated on March 7th.
I don't remember how many years. I remember when the testifying when the original date was July 22, that when you get to October of this year, they would have 2 years worth of enrollment. So they would have the kids that are there right now. They would, most of the people, they can sign up anytime during the year, but the vast majority is going to sign up before, September starts. So they would have 2 years worth of enrollment, and they'd have the financial data. So, if they delay it, another year, yeah, you're right. They'd have at least 3 years of enrollment. They'd have 3, 4 of financial data. My greatest concern is that, they don't dig themselves in too deep doing procedures that are not appropriate or not a good way to handle the state money. So that's why I preferred the earlier date, but I'm okay. I just want to see it passed.
Thank you.
What's that? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Representative Lakes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I'm Representative Tony Lekis. I represent Hillsborough 37, the towns of Hudson and Pelham. And certainly House CDNA supports audits and this audit as well. We want to make sure that all programs, including this one, are operated, as specified in, statute by the legislature. But I have particular concerns about doing it, having the original effective date of July of this year. Previous speaker said that we would have 2 years of enrollment data by October, and that's true, but there's a couple of issues. One is when the program started last year, it was operating under interim rules. And the actual rules were not finalized, approved by JELCR, I think until either late February or very early March of this year. And there were substantial differences between those rules and the interim rules. And so, part of what a performance audit would do would be make sure that they're operating in accordance with statute and rules. And, most of what's going on for the school year is in place. So the new rules wouldn't at least be fully in effect until the start of the next school year in any case. And as the letter from the director of the audit division stated, that generally when auditing the performance of a new program, it's best to wait until it's been operational for some amount of time, so it's operating in a steady state fashion. And that's not even going to start really until probably next fall, next school year. And they recommend that typically a few years should be it should be in operation for a few years before an audit, because they say that it can take a bit for things to settle down and for everything to be in place. So I strongly support there being an audit. However, as the previous speaker said, it could start as early as October of this year, and I really don't think the program would have been in operation under its final set of rules long enough for them to produce, I think, useful information. If we're going to pay for an audit, we ought to get something that's useful. I could argue that July of 23, that might almost be a little bit too soon, but I think that's a reasonable compromise because, as was said, it won't really start until at least the fall of that year. So I think that would be, fine time for it to occur. But I'd like to, I don't want to see a lot of caveats in an audit saying, we saw this is what's going on, but they weren't operating for most of this period under the final rules, and so we can't be sure of certain things. And that's my concern, that we actually get good data for what we're going to be paying for the audit. So I'll be glad to respond to questions.
Thank you very much. Senator Khan?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So it looks like the House had the same concern you did. By adjusting the date to July 23 and realizing the workload that LBA has, this wouldn't take place until the fall of 23, and the 3 years of data would be available to try to true up to the rules that are in place.
I don't agree. I don't think that was the concern. As was said, it could possibly start as early as October of this year, and I think the concern was that it not start too early, so that it might not be effective if it isn't operating for at least a school year, a fiscal year, under the final rules. So if it was started anytime this year or spring of 23, then it would not have operated for a full school year under the final rules. And I think that's a problem. By moving it to July of 23, we would make sure there would at least have been a full school year and fiscal year under the final rules. And that was the concern.
So may I follow up? So we've got this statement about the demographics of qualifying applicants for the school year 20 and 21. That's when they applied. Their school year was 21, 22. What if we enumerated additional years in here to say, no, you need to include in this audit the demographics from 21, 22, 22, 23, and fall of '23. We could probably add some words here to assure your concern that if this says effective July 2023, that the audit doesn't take place until after July 2023.
I suppose, I mean, is whatever language is used, you know, it should happen after June of 2023 because that's the end of the fiscal and the school year. I think the language that's there now does that.
Okay.
But I mean, that is the concern, Senator.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't have anybody else signed up to speak. So is there anybody in the audience who feels they want to add something to House Bill 1135? If not, we'll close the hearing.
Yeah. Take care.
We're going to have a 10-minute recess. We are still waiting for some of the senators to come back from testifying on their bills.
Move executive session?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we're now in executive session and out of recess. Do I need a second for executive session?
Yeah, we did it.
Okay, you
we're
did.
there.
Okay. I am suggesting looking at 1125, the relative to school emergency plans. We have an amendment by Senator Prentice.
Senator Warren, and just for the record, I worked on this amendment with Homeland Security and Emergency Management. I did run it by the sponsor, prime sponsor of the bill, Representative Cordelli. So, and we did hear from Emergency Management, and I believe DOE that we, that this works.
Do I have a motion on the bill?
I'll move ought to pass.
I will second ought to pass.
Okay, now we have an amendment to the bill.
Move amendment 1337.
1337S. Have you had a chance to read that? And I need a motion on the amendment.
I'll move amendment 1337S.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now we have an ought to pass on the bill with the amendment 1337.
Move. Yep. I'll move ought to pass as amended, and I'd like to speak to my motion.
Go ahead, Senator Hennessy.
Second, can we get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Senator, for fixing some of the concerns that we heard and for changing the date to October 15th, because that was also what we heard. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So we had ought to pass on the bill with the amendment,
Move to consent.
but we haven't voted on the bill yet.
Oh.
She spoke to him.
Trying to.
All those in favor of ought to pass with amendment?
Aye.
And then we have the consent from
Move to
Senator
consent.
Sharkey.
Second.
All those in favor of consent?
Aye.
Good, that's 5-0. Who wants to take it out?
Who does?
I'll be happy to take it out.
Oh, Suzette, you want?
I raised my hand, sorry. I have this habit from being on a city council of
Senator
raising
Prentice will
hands
take
rather
it
than
out.
speaking, which is, I know, hard for many to believe.
You did all the work on the amendment, so that's
I believe you. Thank you.
pass with amendment. 5-0 consent, 5-0. Okay, that's one done. Oh. The next one I like to do is 1513. The definition of a child with disability.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, I'm trying to prepare something on 1513 as well. I know you were going to plan on an amendment there, so I guess I'd ask
Well, my
if,
amendment is that it says inclusive. But the thing is that it's got to be done. Can you do it before tomorrow?
it's been submitted.
What?
I submitted it today.
Oh, okay, so we can do it tomorrow?
I hopefully can get that to you tonight, but I
Yeah.
don't,
Okay,
hopefully.
so we'll hold this off. Just the other one. Wanted to do the one on the, did we do the one on the DOE supplying books? That was, there was.
We didn't do it. We talked, I thought we didn't do it. We talked about it.
Which
But
is the
attention
book.
study, maybe you're.
Representative Tam.
Attention study, thank you.
Oh, we did, so it's done.
Done.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
I was incorrect.
Okay.
I just remember the conversation. I'm sorry.
The 1663 for home, requirements for home education students, I have a request to hold on. They're looking for something else to add to that. What about 1381 relative to student school board members?
I'm sorry, my ears are plugged in.
1381 students.
Thank you.
1381.
Oh.
Want to discuss it? Any thoughts?
I think Jay has some.
Well,
Senator Khan, you have some?
Well, I'm comfortable with one portion of it and uncomfortable with the other. So relative to 631-1, assault charges, I'm,
I just got the call, I gotta go, be back.
You're leaving?
Yeah.
Okay, then I think that we probably should stop.
Be back soon.
Well, somebody else has to leave. at
well,
new time.
Madam Chair,
That's a different.
what, 13, what, 15, oh, 15, no, 1311? 1381. Oh, sorry. Oh, no.
Which
this
are you
is
talking
fine.
about?
Do we have any changes to it?
Senator Khan, which bill do you want to discuss?
Discuss 1381. That's where we are.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
So it's on 1381, no, the only thing that there were two things that came up in the hearing. One was, what should the effective date be? There was a suggestion of maybe it ought to be January 1st of '23 so that towns could decide when they want to hold these elections in the spring or fall of the year.
Senator Hennessy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we heard some testimony about Section 3, about the student participation, and that sometimes there may be more than one student that would like to participate, or schools might rotate kids through doing school board, being the student representative on the school board. But the way that it's written here, it says the student board member shall serve a term of 1 year. I think we also heard some testimony about the issue with the not eligible to vote. And that if
But they are eligible to vote.
there's a strikeout of the not eligible to vote. Right. Oh, so I see. Yep.
But it is a non-voting, it's clear up above
Yeah.
on line 5. It's a
Okay.
non-voting member, yeah.
I mean, in the elections, a student who will graduate during the term's duration is not eligible to be a candidate.
Which means that a senior elected in September would graduate prior to the end of the term and have to have used the second clause there that it would be filled, they'd have to fill the vacancy.
Right, but we're saying you can't, they wouldn't even be eligible.
Right.
Yeah, so I think and I apologize, I don't have time to fix all of the issues with the bills that come before us, but
But we could take out the word not.
okay. Okay.
Now, this is a school board for a high school, or are we having students from kindergarten through 8th grade?
Just high school.
I see our school board association, and I think you had a hand in working with the legislator who brought this forward. I don't know, did you?
Could I say something, Madam Chair?
Yes. Okay.
I just speak up. For discussion purposes, I did reach out to school superintendents who do prefer local control. It's not that they're opposed to it, but they like the community to decide, along with a few of the things that would need to be fixed in the bill. If you look at weighing the importance of local control and state control in public education, I wonder if it isn't better to let each town decide rather than making it a mandate. And I'm going by some of my constituent comments. Wanted to bring that out.
Well, on line 4, I would prefer may have a non-voting student. And I'm looking at on the school board, I have a school board that represents kindergarten through 5th grade. Obviously, they're not going to have a kid on the school board, I don't think.
Yeah, it says each public high school on line 5.
Part of me says this thing needs a little bit of extra work to finish it.
Maybe interim study it so it can get work done.
Can we, I'm wondering if we delete lines 15 through 20, would that actually do anything? Would that be better for the schools that want to rotate members through?
So they can each, the different students will take a 3-month term.
Or they can elect one person?
It's fine with me.
So I would be okay with a committee amendment, if it's not too difficult, where we delete 15 through 20, and on line 4, change the word shall to may have at least one.
Right.
I guess I think that the word shall is an improvement to it. I think taking it out really doesn't leave this with much meaning.
Well, should we put the bill in interim study? That's another option.
It's possible, but I think the testimony was that most schools are doing it. And it sounded like if we're really interested in assuring that students have a voice, I think that's the question for us. Will school boards gain value by having student membership, non-voting student membership?
Can I ask a question of the School Board Association?
I think. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you. Can you tell us, do you have any members that are opposed to the word shall versus may?
Thank you for the question. We didn't survey individual members regarding this. We do know as a whole, our membership supports having student school board members as non-voting members of their school boards. In fact, when this bill came to us with Representative LaBranch, it was right after our delegate assembly where the membership had voted to add scholarships from our organization for student school board members this year. So we do know that they value that. I think people appreciate the opportunity to select how those students serve on the board because different communities do have different ways of doing that, but we did not ask individual members.
Thank you.
Yeah, I support that suggestion that you had, remove the section 3. And do you think that the effective date there?
Oh, I have no fixed effective date.
Huh?
Yeah, the effective date should be, what did we hear?
I
January
wrote down
1st?
January 1st. Yeah.
January 1st, 2023. So what, we're taking out 15 to 20.
Yep.
Deleting that section. And I suggested taking out shall and say may, and allowing the local people to decide whether or not they want to do it.
Yeah.
Any problems with that?
I wouldn't vote for it myself, but that's just me.
But that's, again, is another mandate, that you have to have one. Is that what you wanna-
I think that's the point. I mean, otherwise, yes, many school boards already do this.
Nope. I have trouble with shall. It seems to me that that should be an option for school boards. They shouldn't have to have one.
I agree.
So,
So why don't we make a motion with the committee amendment?
yeah, we already have one. We can add.
Madam Chair, we have no motions on this bill.
Okay, so we need a motion on this bill.
Your mic's not on, Senator Khan.
I'll move on to pass.
With a committee amendment?
We don't have a second on AutoPAD.
I second it.
Madam Chair, I'll move a committee amendment to delete lines 15 through 20 and change the effective date to January 1st of 2023.
Okay, and we'll leave the shall for Senator Khan. We'll leave that in.
Works for me.
Okay.
So I just have a question. First of all, we need a second on the committee amendment.
I'll second.
Okay, so Senator Hennessy moved the committee amendment. It was seconded by Senator Khan. Now that we have that, I just want to make sure I understand what we're moving and what we're not. So let's start with line 4. Are we changing it to may, or are we keeping shall?
Senator Khan really wants shall because he says without it, there's no teeth in it.
Okay, so we're keeping shall in this committee amendment, okay? Then going down, we're gonna remove section 3, so lines 15 through 20
Yes,
altogether, and we are changing the effective date to January 1st, 2023.
correct.
That's the committee amendment we're voting on.
Right.
Okay. Awesome, then,
Do
Madam
we have
Chair?
to vote on the committee amendment?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Favor of the committee amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, I vote for it.
Aye.
So the committee amendment is approved.
Move ought to pass as amended.
I'll
Second.
pass on the bill as amendment with the committee
Second.
amendment. Any discussion? So all those in favor of ought to pass on the bill with the committee amendment?
Aye.
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 So that's 4. So we can't put it on consent.
No. Unless,
No, I'll be glad to take it out.
Okay. And my apologies, Madam Chair, I have to go.
I know you have to go, so. Okay, I need a vote to come out of executive session. Move.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We'll see you all tomorrow. Here. 2.
Me too.
So, Senator Hennessy,
I know.
Here, can I just say something? 11:32.